Sherri, and she just didn't answer. But he looked at where her phone was located. Keith noticed that Sherri's iPhone was down by their mailbox, which, like I said, the mailboxes for this neighborhood were at the ends of the roads. There are a couple of roads that lead into the Papini's neighborhood, but he just assumed, Keith thought, that Sherri and the children walked down to get the mail, and he just had taken a different route into their neighborhood and did not see them. Their mailbox was approximately a mile away from their house and property, so Keith thought it might be a while before they got back. However, after a little bit of time, Keith still did not hear from Sherri or the children, and he grew concerned. He then called his mother and asked if Sherri had spoken to her that day, and his mom said no. This was very odd, as they had a close relationship and typically spoke several times throughout the day. Keith then decided it would be best to call the kids' daycare and asked when Sherri had picked up the kids that afternoon. The worker on the other end of the line said that Keith's children were still there and they had not been picked up. Keith hung up the phone and was very worried at this point in time. He knew this was very unlike Sherri and that something must have happened had she not picked up the children from daycare. Keith then drove down to the mailbox, expecting to find his wife walking somewhere along the way. After not spotting her, he drove back to their property and began to search for her outside again, thinking maybe she had fallen and gotten hurt. After still no luck with finding Sherri, Keith drove back to the mailbox where he got out, and he then saw Sherri's phone was near the road. Sherri's phone, along with her headphones and strands of her blonde hair, were basically thrown out next to the communal mailbox that the neighborhood had. After finding this, Keith immediately dialed 911, and the police began to search for her right away. Sherri's disappearance took up on national television, and so many people began searching for her. Sadly, the police did not have much information to go off of, and they were unable to find anything related to Sherri's disappearance. So, of course, Keith was very distraught about this, and he was hoping that the police would eventually find Sherri. Fast forward 3 weeks after Sherri had disappeared. It was November the 24th, which was Thanksgiving Day that year, and something crazy happened. It was 4:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving when a woman named Allison Sutton was driving along I-5 in Yolo County. Yolo County is approximately 150 miles south of Redding, California. Allison was driving when all of a sudden she noticed a woman jumped out from the side of the road. This woman looked terrified. She appeared to be waving a white shirt, and Allison almost accidentally hit this woman. Allison chose to keep driving at this time, as the whole situation seemed a bit weird. She didn't want to stop and be caught in some type of a trap, but she stopped further down the road and called 911. The police showed up fairly quickly while it was still dark out, and there they found the woman that Allison was talking about, trying to flag down vehicles on the side of the road. The police questioned this woman, and really all she managed to tell them was that she was Sherri Papini. Sherri said that she had been released from her captors at 4:30 that morning and had basically been dropped off in a van and been searching around for help. Sherri had tried knocking on the door of a church, and the church's camera footage saw her running through the parking lot, very panicked looking. Then she tried several homes before trying to flag down various cars before the police showed up. The police found that Sherri had lost a significant amount of her body weight, and if you remember, she had been very petite before, so this made her almost emaciated. They also noticed that Sherri's long blonde hair had been chopped off and that she had several bruises on her face. They even saw what appeared to be a branding mark on her body, and she still had shackles around her neck and waist area. The police, of course, took Sherri to the hospital, and there they found DNA on Sherri belonging to two different people. One of them appeared to be the DNA from a woman, and one from a man. Sherri was reunited with her family at the hospital, which was amazing. But during this time, Sherri was really unable to tell the police pretty much anything about her abduction, and this is fairly common. It can take some Over the next few weeks and months, however, Sherri was able to remember enough small details, and she told the police that two Hispanic women had abducted her while she was out running. She said that when she was down near the mailbox, a bag had been placed over her head and she had been taken captive. The two women had tried to keep Sherri's head covered and their faces covered at most points. Sherri said that she only ever saw these two women and that they starved her and beat her and even broke a portion of her nose. So that is what happened to Sherri, and the police began to look for the two suspects. However, they have never been able to find them at all, which is so sad. You would want these people to be brought to justice. However, some people began to question whether this kidnapping was a hoax or if it was real. People found that back in the year 2000, Sherri had tried to break into her sister Sheila's house and later that day vandalized her family's house. Then in 2003, Sherri also stole some money from her father, but later returned the money. And then another time in 2003, Sherri's mother called the police, saying that Sherri had been hurting herself and threatening to say it was her mother's fault. But for me, that happened when Sherri, was in her teenage years. That could have been just normal stuff that happened. Other people claim it was a hoax just because male and female DNA had been found on Sherri, even though she claims she was only with two women the whole time. Personally, however, I believe Sherri's story. The police still have not released all of the information that Sherri told them, but they're still looking into this case. They have not found the suspects yet. I truly feel awful for the Papini family, and I'm so glad that Sherri was found and do wish them the best. Definitely let me know your thoughts on this case below, as I did find it to be a very interesting one. Thank you guys so much for watching.